This is an interview with Dr. Leanne Atkin, who is a vascular nurse consultant in the north of England, speaking about her experience of the culture in vascular surgery.
I obviously hear how other people feel across the UK, but I'm going to talk about my experience within my organisation. So I've worked with Imajox the whole of my career. It's the only organisation I've ever worked in. I started to work in vascular in around 2000. At the time, I was a ward sister on the vascular ward. And then I developed into a specialist nurse and then into a consultant nurse. Throughout all of that time, there has been 4 consultants within our organisation. Mm-hmm. And each and every one of them have never been anything but wholly supportive. And they hold values and behaviours that are impeccable. And I have never witnessed, never been privy to, never felt anything but huge respect. I've never witnessed them bullying, harassing. We have banter. I'm not saying we don't, especially in the MDT, there is banter, but no banter that I would have thought that was sexual in nature, that was offensive, that was belittling. If anything, the banter in our MDT is, did Leanne see the patient? It's more likely to be accurate than some of the medics that saw that patient. So, and I have had four consultants, brilliant. 2 of those consultants specifically have enabled my career. And if I wouldn't have had that, I wouldn't have been able to reach where I am. So they encouraged me to be a nurse consultant. They encouraged me to do my PhD. And I was their clinical lead. So for a good 2 years, I had to sign off their holidays, talk to them about their mandatory training, and I was their clinical lead leading the service. And I just think that just shows how equal they saw me to allow me to be that clinical lead. There has been times in my organisation where if I'd have gone on to, I've been on medical wards before and I've said things that contradict the actual medical decisions that's been made by that leading consultant. That has sometimes come round, but my vascular consultants have always been there to 100% defend me, 100%, no matter what. Even if we were right or even if they were the wrong, they stood by me. And, you know, I have had to fight to be able, through the organisation, to be able to get the grade I am as a clinical academic. But my consultants have been the one that's wanting to write statements to support me, to be able to be there for me. So I see a very different picture than what people describe. I've never had any of that. I speak on vascular conferences. I get invited by other vascular surgeons to speak on those conferences. I get invites to be part of research. And when I'm part of those groups, I do feel an equal. I feel that they do respect. I don't feel tokenism, as some of my vascular nurse colleagues feel. So I think I have been very privileged. I think there's something about, there was only ever 4 consultants, so the firm was never that big. I think there's something about, they're only 10 years older than me, so they were relatively young consultants when I met them. So we were just a 4 consultant body with his own beds and his own on-call. We merged with a larger organisation. Some of their consultants have not been as welcoming, and some of their consultants have been more, that patient should see a surgeon, not a nurse. But that, I think, has been said out of naivety, of them not understanding my level of practice. And again, from those, I personally have never experienced any form of anything but encouragement. The clinical lead over there, she respects that I was the clinical lead, and she emailed me and we had direct communication, and that felt very of an equal standing. So I think I see nothing but respect and cohesion. And I manage a team of 7 vascular nurses now, and I'm sure that they would all say the same about our consultants, of how supportive they've always been of that team of nursing. Those nurses have never left. Well, one of them left One of them went to get a different job. Within 12 months, she came back to me, because we're a nice little protective firm, and we're a community, and we're it's like a big family.
Sounds amazing. It's so great to hear such a wonderful example of a collaborative team that is mutually respectful and just really works.
Yeah.
And you were saying earlier about banter, because there's, this whole thing about, well, banter, it's all very well, but it becomes something else. Some people think it's banter and other people are being hurt by
Indeed.
it.
Indeed.
But it seems to me that in a team like yours, where you've already got this mutual respect, then you can banter because everyone
Indeed.
knows that they really respect each other. So even if they did a bit of a put down, which doesn't sound like there's much of that anyway, it's okay because it's banter, it's not meant. Whereas I think
100%.
what you see in other teams where you haven't got that mutual respect is it's a way of having a dig at somebody and saying, oh, it's just banter.
Yeah, yeah. And I see these traits whenever we have a medical student. I see these traits of my consultants really fostering and really ensuring, and they're all hugely aware of a female being in that environment. They're all hugely aware of it. I think it's because a lot of them had daughters, so there was something about protectivism of not allowing anything like that. I've never heard one of them raise the voice. I've never heard one of them swear at somebody. We've sworn because we all go fucking hell, but they've never sworn at somebody. I've never heard them ask the juniors to do anything that they wouldn't do themselves. And they are so committed to education. They're happy to give and delay a meeting and delay to be able to educate the up and coming residents. So it's not just within the nursing team that I see we all really protect nursing students and doctors in training to be able to really foster this type of approach for them to see how this can work.
Mm-hmm.
And he often says, I'm asking the specialist to come in this area, and he gives that respect straight away in front of the doctors in training, of the medical students we might have, or the patient that's there, so you instantly know that we're on this level, and it's a pleasure.
That's just so great to hear, and I'm very happy for you and the team, and it's wonderful that these people are fostering such a great supportive environment. So I suppose the question then is, what is there about your team, or what is there that we can take from your team to other teams where it isn't happening? What is the difference that makes the difference? Because it would be easy to say, oh, well, it's just that you've got 4 lovely consultants who've got really great personalities and who've kind of got this supportive culture kind of through and through, and therefore it's just going to be great and that's it. There's nothing, and then other people aren't like that. But I feel like there must be things that, and you've probably touched on some of them already, because that's the point of these conversations in a way, is to share some of the good practice so that others can take it on.
I think if you ask me what's the key, obviously there's multi-components to all of this. But I think the one thing is, I think they've got a conscious awareness. I think they've got a conscious awareness of how they are seen, how they portrayed, and how they make sure it's a cohesive. Now, I have to come back with this caveat that one is the associate dean and one was the dean for undergraduate training.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that their external experience, and they were involved in the bullying, the sexual harassment investigations at this higher level. So they may well have been learning the lessons of their reports that they were doing constantly, and they were acting in those behaviours. The third one was a medical director. So I don't know whether there's something about them not just being vascular surgeons, but being involved in this wider arching, higher level stuff, that they therefore ensure that they portray those behaviours.
Yeah, so they've got the bigger picture.
They see it from all perspectives, and they're able to see, because I think we can argue it's the snowflake generation and all the rest of it, which I flipping hate. But I think that they see that the truth is the truth as that person describes it. And I think that awareness kept them really good.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because their bigger picture view that helps them to create this great environment. Presumably, you don't have to do those jobs to have that bigger picture view, to be educated that these are the important things. They can see how that's important because they've seen all these different stories and things that are going on. And others could see that too. You don't have to be doing that role.
Yeah, I take that, but I just don't know whether it's something about, we all do it as mandatory training, but they were living it every day.
Mm.
And I just don't know whether there's something about living it every day doesn't just become tokenism of training, but it becomes you as an individual. When I reflect back of why they're so good, I always thought that that might be an element of it.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. It would be interesting to ask them what for their perspective on that as well.
It's really hard. Whatever that magic is, it would be great if your work could say what that is. How do we bottle it? How do we transfer it? I haven't got that answer for you, if you like. I know what that magic feels like, and I know how wonderful a working environment that gives me. Yeah, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it, if your work is able to pull this out? You know,
Yeah.
what that is.
Yeah.
What are those traits?
And how to encourage them in people
Yeah,
because I think a large part of this is that people who perhaps just don't naturally have those traits probably don't see the importance of them
yeah,
because we're all living in our own world, aren't we? Kind of created by how we show up and we get certain responses and we learn to deal with that. And we have no idea what our life would be like if we showed up completely differently.
no,
And other people are getting completely different results. And it can be hard to understand. That's what I is so interesting about my work is I love pointing that out to people because a lot of people have just never even thought about it.
yeah. And I often think it depends what lens you have over your face today. I know that she touched on a certain surgeon that's really hindered her career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I worked with that same individual. I find him nothing but approachable. I find him nothing but inclusive. I don't see any of that. So, different lens towards him, but has he got a different lens? And therefore, this goes so much deeper than the prejudice that we hear about on a daily basis. So the female, the nurse, the student, it goes much more the race, the background, the culture, the religion. We hear about those, but I just think there's also so many nuances in relationships that actually it might not come from that prejudicial point of view. It might just be how sometimes you love one brother more than your other brother because
Mm.
he's annoying me at minutes.
And of course, there is such a thing as chemistry, isn't there, between
Yeah, of
people,
course.
whatever that is.
Yeah,
But it's then how do you handle that? Because you don't gel with somebody and maybe you don't particularly like them, that doesn't mean that therefore you need to stand in the way of their career. That's absolutely wrong. So
absolutely.
it's like acknowledging, okay, I don't feel warmly towards this person, but I can still treat them, or noticing what's my bias then towards them? How am I treating them that I might not even notice because it seems justified?
And I think also for the consultant surgeons to understand the power that they have, the power that they hold over their team. And I think sometimes they don't realize that power. And they have to, I think, acknowledge that power. And that power is about making somebody's work life good or bad. That power is about making somebody's career progressive or not. That power is about mentoring that person to be the best they can be and to solve these in the future. They have a degree of power over all of that. And I think some of the consultants just don't understand that power that they wield on a regular basis.
So it's interesting you put it that way because I think some people would say, oh, they do understand and they're doing it deliberately. So presumably there's these different groups that must happen too.
I don't think that all of the surgeons that I know, well, maybe there might be one or two that might wield it purposely, but the surgeon I'm thinking about, he doesn't know he's got it. but he has that power. Somewhere he's not so consciously aware. And as soon as I point things out to him, he goes, shit, did I? And then he's happy to reflect on that and change. But I think because he's very, very junior and relatively young, he goes, they don't think of me like that. And I'm going, they do. You know, you are that person that can make their day good or bad by the tone of your voice. But he's hugely reflective.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, and that's the difference that will make the difference.
Yes.
Because if you say something and then somebody points it out to you and then you're like, oh, I didn't know, oh, and then you go and apologize or you start doing it differently, it's, you know, that's night and day. And isn't it great also that your relationship with him is such that you can say that and
Well,
you can hear it even.
yeah. Well, we fostered that relationship over rocky grounds, let's
Okay.
call it. I knew of him because he was one of the vascular surgeons on call, and I knew of him, but we've never worked together. He came over and he started to do some clinical sessions in my organisation. He's very direct, but the team loved him. He weren't a smiler, and I'm a smiley person. So every morning I just used to try to kill him with kindness. Here's a coffee. Are you all right? Are we all right today? Hand on a shoulder. Well, anything else you need, let me know. Type, kill them with kindness. And then he walked into my room full of all of my team, and he spoke very directly to me in a very questionable way about one of my clinical actions. And he went out and all of my team went, gosh, that were direct. Are you all right? And I went, oh, interesting. I said, I'm absolutely fine. I didn't feel anything there. He went, God, we did. That were awful. I went, interesting. So I just went over to his room, knocked on his room, and I said, can we have a word? He went, yeah, why? I says, that. He went, what? And he had no awareness of that whatsoever. And I said to him, I said, I'm happy for you to talk to me in any manner you like, because I'm happy with that. That don't bother me, that directness. I says, but I don't want you to do that in front of my team. I says, because all you're doing is making my team not being able to ask you a question if they need to ask you a question. He went, never even clocked they were there. I'm sorry. Do you want me to go and apologise to him? I said, no, don't need you to apologise to him. I said, I just want you to. He went, got it, not a problem. And I think there is a little bit about, I am 50, I've been in this game a long time, and I am prepared to knock at a door and have a direct conversation. If I were newer in my career, if I didn't have the confidence of my 4 vascular surgeons that's given me very strong legs to stand on in the first place, I might not have been able to knock on that door. And I can see how you instantly get to those 2 paths and you can go one direction. But I am able to tackle that. But I think it's because of my solid foundation of my 4 amazing vascular surgeons have given me over that time. And I also knew if that conversation went wrong, I could go back to my foundation roots and they would help me deal with that.
Yes.
So I think it is that overall team that makes that difference.
Absolutely. And that exactly that is what I think is at the heart of this project is helping individuals to understand that even as individuals, you can start to change the culture, not by facing down the person who's really direct and, you know, not going straight there, but by starting to build those relationships with your peers even, or, you know, with the people that you do communicate well with, to start to create this team more like the team you've got. Because I think what I hear from people a lot is that something happens and it's like you feel terrible, you feel belittled, and you just, your head goes down, you put it under the carpet, no one's ever going to speak about it, everyone's shocked and no one says anything, and it just gets worse from there. So everyone's kind of suffering in silence, whereas just that, are you okay, that wasn't okay, and getting allies of people, that maybe the one consultant who somebody's team who they can speak to say, my people felt this or I felt that, can you speak to them? Those kind of things, because at the moment I just feel the whole thing often is just going underground.
Yeah, and I think the most telling thing is when a vascular surgeon's under pressure. And it's really interesting to speak to the theatre nurses who have worked with Mr. Irving, because he's never raised his voice in a theatre. And if I were in theatre, I think I'd be the type of person that would be raising my voice, because I think if I become overwhelmed in that situation and all of that, that's not my environment. But this man is able to control all of that. And again, I think it comes from his training, that he's been involved in ATLS training all of his life, and he's able to control that in a adrenaline rush. But he's never raised his voice to any theatre nurse. Every theatre nurse that's worked with him go, God, we miss him. When's he coming back? He hasn't helped their career like he's helped mine. He hasn't brought on those nurses like he's brought on my team. They have that respect for him just because of how he interacts with them in their theatres. Mm-hmm. And again, I just think that if you could bottle his personality and spread it across the whole of the UK, you'd have none of this.
But also, again, I sort of, I feel like I keep coming back to this, that, there's no way we're going to bottle him and make everybody like that. And there will be people, like, imagine you said you'll be the sort of person that will raise your voice in theatre, and so would I. And I think if you're sort of thinking you've got to get rid of that, then that's never going to work. No. But I think, I also think, and I'd love to hear your take on this, that is it possible to be the sort of person, the sort of consultant who maybe does raise your voice when you're under pressure, when you're stressed, when something's going wrong, and maybe even snaps at somebody, but because of the relationships that you've already fostered, it's okay?
I think 100% yes. And I think it's about having awareness.
Thanks so much to Leanne for that really rich conversation, and it's rather an abrupt end there. There was more to the conversation where Leanne explained about understanding the different personalities in her team and how helpful that is in creating better working relationships. So you can find that in a different clip. But I hope that you found this conversation helpful, and I'd love to hear your comments.